Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Little technical difficulties with the video, but we know who we are, we know where we are. So I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and host of Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. And what we really do is create a great environment where we bring in entrepreneurs and business owners and leaders to really share their expertise and share, what they have and how they've been successful and how they help other people be successful. Because at the end of the day, success in business is about leadership. So how can you be a better leader? That's what you learn from other people who are leadership people. So I've got Carmelo Garcia here and Coach G, and he's doing some great things. So that's why I wanted to bring him on the show. And I could tell you a lot about him, but I'm gonna let him tell you himself. How you doing, Carmelo?
Outstanding, my brother. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Grateful to be here and to share some wonderful nuggets tonight.
Excellent. So yeah, and I've been excited about having you on the show. Love the topic. So if you guys don't know the topic, it's the secret to achieving breakthrough results. It's the perfect timing because we're coming up on the end of the year. So you should be planning for the next year. So these are some things that can be valuable when you're planning for the next year, because we want you to break out and be more successful than others. That's our goal. We want you to do it as well. So Carmelo, everybody has a journey. You started out somewhere and you did a lot of things to get where you are. So talk a little bit about, take a few minutes, feel free to talk a little bit about sort of where you started, some of the milestones, some of the things you learned on the milestones to get you where you are now doing what you're doing.
Great question. And thank you, Andrew. Again, it's just grateful to God to be here, to be able to fulfill his purpose for how are we transforming others through our stories. I mean, that's hope, right? Hearing other people's stories. So it's just wonderful to be able to go through your journey, have this reflection, and now know that you go from your career to your calling and you're able to really help others. I mean, that's what it boils down to with your expertise, was the wisdom that you've ascertained in order for them to thrive and strive and not just survive. But even during those downtimes where they're going through a storm or they have a fire within their business, how do they grow from that fire and not just go through the fire, right? So what I've been fortunate to do in the last 25 years, which, I thought all along that as a former politician, recovering politician is what I tell everyone, right? That was a part of what I was meant to be doing, and realizing today that all of that was just training and preparation truly for helping, business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives on creating a healthier lifestyle, really being transformative with who they're trying to become in finding their purpose, in taking their business to the next level, leveling up where their business could be at a bronze level and they're shooting to go to a gold level or platinum level. So in all of my years through my academics, having the pedigree of having a graduate degree, two graduate degrees at Stevens Institute of Technology, and then going to Harvard to study in community development, serving in office for 14 years as an elected, official, and then being an executive, CEO, executive director, and president, to be able to now share with everyone from a coaching perspective, how do you level up? How do you go through those storms? How do you basically use your gifts to give it away? Pablo Picasso once said, the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of it is to give it away. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'm looking forward to sharing the mantra, right? We can, will watch us, which is a God sent mantra. And how do we put God first in everything we do? And how do we make sure that we are creating a culture, that we're cultivating effective leadership within our businesses? How do we make sure that we transform and grow with the trends, considering the fact that we had a pandemic and now we're trying to get out of this pandemic, and we have inflation, and you have these market forces that are tearing companies down, and you have these small business owners who are trying to figure out, how do I even retain my people, because we're in this great resignation. And now we're pushing the great awakening. So I always say that the enemy of prosperity is uncertainty. So how do you use a blueprint to ensure that you are bulletproof, to ensure that you're growing, to ensure that you're taking your business to the next level? So for me, I've been very fortunate to have expertise in a variety of areas. But today I can sit with executives and truly help them assess their business plan, create a better business plan, understand, how do you go from good to great? How do you go from being successful to significant? So that's where we are. That's where the calling is. And that's the purpose that I'm serving, Andrew. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share and give away this gift.
Excellent. No, definitely. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for what you do. Definitely it's not easy to do what you do. And you bring such an energy and a vibrance to it that makes it almost fun, even because as a business owner, it can be so challenging, and you can be down, and you need that energy. You
Yes.
need that energy, you need that passion, you need that encouragement. Definitely look forward to really just chatting with you further about this. But before we do that, we're going to just take a break. We do this through the Small Business Pro University. So it's good for people to know, what is the Small Business Pro University? So I got a short video, and then we'll be back talking with Coach G, talking small business. Do you own your business, or does it own you? Is your business growing, and are you making enough money? As a business owner, there are so many things you need to know to become more successful. Hello. My name is Andrew Frazier, the Business Growth Pro and CFO. I created the Small Business Pro University for you. Small Business Pro University has self-paced, dynamic, multimedia learning experiences created by more than 20 instructors who are business owners just like you. Small Business Pro University will empower you to become a masterpreneur by learning the secrets to creating a successful enterprise, to go from working in your business to work. All right. I don't know. Is my video coming through bad on your side?
No, it was wonderful. I think.
It was stopping on my screen, so I
don't know. Mine, it went smoothly. I don't know. Maybe it just might be my machine.
Okay. Well, no. If it's moving, let me just. Did it get through pretty much?
Yes. Yeah. I think the connection was on point. So
okay. Excellent. So definitely. We have a similar passion of helping business owners and entrepreneurs really be successful. And, it's one thing to survive. It's another thing to thrive. And if you're going to thrive, you can't be the same person you were when you were surviving. So you need help making that transition. So that's what Carmelo does. That's what I do. That's what others do, depending on what your evolution needs to be. So, Carmelo, talk a little bit about, when you meet someone, how do you assess where they are and what they need? What are some of the key questions or things you want to know?
So the first thing is, how are we going to help them get breakthrough, right? And when you think about what is opposite to breakthrough, is breakdown, right? So you have to really be able to tap into their vulnerabilities of understanding the deficiencies that are occurring within the organization, within their own inward self, because effective leadership is all about influence, nothing more, nothing less. So you, as the leader, if you are exemplary in what you want others, right? The old saying, treat others as you wish to be treated. So when you're the leader, we know that it requires a lot of motivation. It requires a lot of inspiration. You and I both know, we go in and we might do a disc assessment, right? To determine whether they're dominant, they're influencers, they're just steadiness, they're about compliance, and that's all that they want to focus in on. And many times, as we know, it's business owners focusing in the business versus on the business. So we got to get them on the balcony, is what I like to look at it, like, so that they can look at it from a 30,000-foot view, because you have a different perspective when you're on the ground, when you're on top on the balcony. So building bottom up, because it's your people, right, that you're going to value the most. It's your people who are going to generate that return for you, because it's not about the return on investment, but about the return on relationship, whether it's with your strategic partners, your vendors, whether it's with the people who you're servicing, right? It's all about the service and no longer about the sale. Everyone, if you have a product or a service, no matter what, as a coach, one of the blessings is that we don't need that person's approval, because we're going to tell them what they don't want to hear. We're going to show them what they don't want to see. But ultimately, once they take the dive and they take that leap of faith and they commit to, enacting, executing, implementing, and applying that plan, it never fails, where 100% of the time they're going to see the results. Because the secret to happiness, your own happiness, is what? Progress. So when they see that progress, they're going to be motivated, they're going to be jolly, they're going to be inspired, they're going to be more inspirational to their people. So we want to assess, number one, okay, what are you struggling with? Number two, what is the company struggling with? So a lot of the clients that I'm representing, when I'm coaching them, that's what we have to understand. Where are your areas of deficiency? Where are your areas of concern? Where are your areas of challenges that you've laid out a business plan, you've laid out goals, you've done goal setting, but you're not doing goal achieving? Why? So we have to look at where the shortcomings are, and you need someone, third party, as a coach, right? If you're trying to aspire to be an Olympian, you're an Olympian athlete, or you're any professional athlete, you've had multiple coaches along the way. And the same applies to business as executives. Many of them have 2 or 3 coaches in different lanes. I would bring someone like you in, Andrew, right? Once I do the assessment, I look at the resources that I have available in my cadre of experts within my model, because I have an expert aggregator model that I put all the experts throughout the last 20 years that I believe are the best at what they do. And then I bring them in so that you can focus on your core competency and the other areas that we need to build and improve. That's what we zero in on: your core competency, and then the other areas that you want to aspire to have your company be the best.
Okay. Excellent. I couldn't have said it better myself. You hit a lot of great points. So we're just going to go back and review them, because it's important. Sometimes people can miss them. And also, I don't know if you subscribe to this, but a lot of times people only get 30% of what they hear. So that means we got to say it 3 times for them to actually get it, or for everybody to get it. So, one of the things you talked about was the balcony. So people could get perspective. But even before you can get them on the balcony, a lot of times people don't do anything until they have to. So they got to have like a burning platform. They're like, all right, well, I can't figure this out on my own, and it's becoming a big problem. I need to get some help. But you need to get your help before that, because then that could be avoided. I help people get financing, and all the time people are like, oh, I need financing for next week. I'm like, all right, well, you gotta have a certain percentage of what you're asking for. Oh, well, I spent all my money, that's why I need money. Just, they should have came to me before they spent all their money. So so definitely it's important for people to understand that. So that was a great point. And also, you say things that people may not want to hear at the time. Talk a little bit about that and give some examples.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, because that's the toughest part, right? It's almost like, here you are, you're taking your 20 years plus years of expertise in this area of personal development, in this area of business incubation, in this area of literally serving as a CEO, executive director, right? So I always say, never follow a general who doesn't have the scars, right? It's very important that you have someone who understands the storms of life, who understands the storms of business. And so when you are zeroing in on, okay, your areas of deficiency, a lot of times, right, we don't want to be vulnerable. A lot of times we don't want to express our failures. A lot of times, we don't want to look in the mirror. And, you have to be able to, look in the mirror and say, okay, I need to change certain things that I know I'm not happy with. And I need to change certain things that I know my company is falling short on, because you have a target. You set goals. You set goals for yourself. You set goals for the company. And what happens? You fall short. And halfway through, you and I both know halfway through financially, you see it on your end. I see it on the goal setting and where they are with respect to the key performance indicators, right? That's how I evaluate it. I get to say, okay, here we are. You're not even at 30% and you were projected to be at 50%. And so we have to reassess and we have to pull it back. So a lot of times the blessing is, like you said earlier, my gift is with the energy that I bring, the enthusiasm, the heartfelt humility of like, hey, I've been there. I understand, what you're going through, but it's about the obedience, right? It's about the discipline. And a lot of folks don't realize that it's about that discipline, and it requires across the board. So we look at the emotional, the spiritual, the physical alignment of that executive, of that, C-suite individual. And we look at it and we say, okay, well, where can you do better? Where can you improve? And you have to know that these are truly the areas where the deficiency lies. And it could be yourself. Not everyone is meant to be a general. Not everyone is meant, to be, the point guard. Not everyone's meant to be the quarterback. Not everyone's meant, to be the pitcher. At the end of the day, we have to find the roles of each of those key leaders, and how are we playing the role as servant leaders, right? If we look at it, there are a lot of beautiful parables that I love to think about. There's one parable, it's called the parable of the sower, right? It's how we're planting those seeds. Because if you think about the normal farmer, right, how they have to plant those seeds, cultivate it, they have to nourish it and nurture it, but they rely so much on the forces of nature, just like you as a business owner rely on the market forces. So how are you planning and preparing? How are you fulfilling your plan along the way? And that starts with you, because ultimately you're the center point, right? You are the leader of the organization. That's why you're the chief executive officer or the chief, operating officer or the CFO. And so what we look at is how can we inwardly, right, begin to transform you. And I can't do that without having an event with you, because change starts with an event. Depending on your response, positive or negative, then we know as a coach that you're going to be able to be triumphant. You're going to be able to have that growth mindset, because you want to become the leader amongst leaders. And that's the key. Once you have that paradigm shift that says, I want to become the leader amongst leader, and I want to be exemplary to inspire my people to cultivate a culture that is going to be about relationships and about love and about service and about valuing others, because the pandemic taught us that a lot of people had to reevaluate where they were in their lives and what was their legacy. Many of them realized, I don't have a legacy, right? I'm living, I have wealth, I have health, but I don't have, a legacy where I'm impactful. I'm not being, purposeful. I'm not having a social impact. And that's the beauty about it. So how do we tie these things together? It begins with you at the center, your core. So that's pretty much one of the great opportunities and principle that we focus on, right? And I call it fear, because there's a fear. And, I was gifted with acronyms, Andrew, where, the good Lord blessed me with these acronyms that I come and I share with others so that they can remember in threes, because our brains, right, thinks in threes and fours, like you said earlier. So it is an acronym in fear, right? How do you overcome that fear of, oh my gosh, I have to look at myself now inwardly. I have to now see why I'm the problem. And I have to acknowledge that, admit it, and now you're aware of it. Now I have to change it, take action to change it. And that's the same thing with the ecosystem of any company. That's the same thing with the ecosystem of ourselves, right? We can't choose our DNA, but we can choose our DEA, which is discipline, our energy, right? Our attitude, right? 1% what happens, 99% how we react to it. But it goes back to the fact that we are afraid. There is fear in us that prevents us from looking inwardly and really assessing what we must change. And that fear, it's critical that the principles of that fear, to turn it on its head upside down, to be fearless, is faith, right? We got to have some faith. No matter what we do, we have to just put God first in everything we're doing, in our business, in our life, in our, everything that we do. And then we have to have that faith that it's going to work out. So we're going to trust the process. We're going to have faith that what we've been told in the promises, that we put in the work, and it's going to be delivered for us. Then you have that energy, right, that you're going to bring, that's going to be infectious, that no matter what comes your way in the adversity, you're going to have that energy that's going to bless others. And then you're going to have that action that you must take to transform the way you do business, your behavior, to transform the way that your people see you doing the business. And then lastly, so you have to be resolute. So you have to have that resolution that no matter what comes, we're going to be resolute. We're going to stay the course that we've selected, and we're going to get to the finish line. We're going to achieve our goals. Even if we fall short of achieving all of them, we're going to achieve most of them.
Okay. All right. So that was like, you could have talked like 10 hours on all those things. That was jam packed with powerful stuff. So I'm going to try and deconstruct it a little, but from the question of saying things people don't want to hear, sometimes that's not easy, but that's what you pay people for. Why pay someone to tell you what you already know? So that's important. And you made the comment, the general with no scars, and it's so appropriate in this day and age, because this is the microwave generation. You're used to just people get real successful and think they're good, and most of them are just lucky, and but you can't tell them that, and they tell everybody else that they're good. But so it's important to be very selective. One thing I liken it with is when you're going for financing, never go with the people that come to you and try to give you financing, because they're going to give you the worst deal, and because they're trying to, if they were that good, you wouldn't even be able to work with them. So you need to find the right people to work with, instead of going necessarily with the people who reach out to you, and especially continually reach out to you, because there's different things vary a lot in terms of the quality and capabilities of people, and it's important for you to make sure you're making the best decisions possible for yourself and for your business. So
and that's why Andrew is so essential. When you think about today's business leaders, right, and you think about the executives that started with a concept and took an initiative and then blew it up into what it is today, whether it was Steve Jobs, it's, Apple, whether it's just, some of the folks that we're working with, Alibaba paid media, where you look at, some of these individuals, Jack Alone over at, Cornerstone Finance. You look at these guys, right, who had this vision, and their number one ideal is, how can we become better to service more of our clients, right? And so when you think about it, you say to yourself, well, number one, you have the right intention, right? It's not just about making money, right? Number two, it's about taking all of the wisdom, taking the services, products that you have, and how do you create a healthier lifestyle for others? How do you give them this transformation that says, I'm a solution? It's solution based. And so when you're giving folks a solution, there's so much added value that you're bringing to them that they're going to absolutely retain you and continue to use you for the advancement of their goals, of their plans, and of their vision. Because ultimately, like you said earlier, it boils down to being earnest with them and letting them know that their vulnerabilities, is a blessing. That's a blessing. Let's be vulnerable and let's really look at what we got going on, and that's a problem, right? It's almost like when we go to our doctors and we don't want to hear certain things that they have to say to us, right? Yeah, cholesterol's too high. You know, you need to lose weight. You know, you get to get more sleep. You got to get, you know, you're stressed out. You're going to give yourself a heart attack because you're working, you know, 60, 80 hours a week. And we don't like to listen to that. But we have to take into account that if we want to continue to be our best self, and it's an always evolving process, right? We're always growing to be our best self. But ultimately, we have to listen to those who, like I've said, have had the expertise, have gone through this process of these storms and these fires. You know, I used to be an executive director where I would troubleshoot, right? You know, leading, you know, thousands of units and 5,000 people that you're responsible for, right? Leading, you know, as a deputy mayor, leading, you know, a growth in economic development and community development, you know, where you're driving $6 billion, you know, in investment into a city that, you know, was disenfranchised, right? Like leading all of that and dealing with those other strategic partners and business leaders, you realize that, you know, okay, this is where they went wrong, and this is how we got to go right, and this is how the solution now that we're bringing can help you become better. So when I look at, you know, the executives that are very fortunate and are very hardworking, and it's, you know, the old saying used to be the harder I work, the luckier I get. Sometimes, and we know that's not always true, right? It's about hard work, but ultimately, you know, it's about the faith that you have in what you do and how you serve others, right? How you wish to be treated and how you want to. Zig Ziglar said it best: if you want to achieve your dreams and goals, help enough other people achieve what they want. And that's what it boils down to, right? You know, John Maxwell, I love what he said. He said, you know, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So it's upon us to influence others. So when I'm meeting with executives and I'm fortunate that they can take the advice and they can apply it and see the results, right? That implementation is so essential. So these CEOs start to realize, wow, you know what? It's not just that I didn't want to listen. Maybe I didn't have the right solution. So a lot of that comes into play with these clients. And I love the fact that they trust, because trust is a big thing, right? It's like, how do they just trust you? And how do you are committed to your staff, to your people, that you build into that trust, no matter what goes on, right? They know your heart. They know your trust. They know that they can turn to you because they want to know three things. Do you care for me? Can you help me? Can I trust you? Do you care for me? Can you help me? Can I trust you? And that's what it boils down to. And listen, like every seed, I talked about the farmers. I love this urban farmer theory, right? Every seed that gets planted in dirt. So everyone at some point or another has been dirty or has dirt enough to see this seed now sprout into what is blossom and destined to become. Why? Because you've gone through that soil, you've gone through that fertile soil, which is the one that we aspire to the most. And that's the parable of the sower, right? You know, where farmer's planting those seeds, he plants it, you know, on rock, and all of a sudden the birds come and eat it. And then he plants it all of a sudden around weeds, and then the weeds come out, you know, after the word is heard, and they, you know, choke it. And then all of a sudden he finds the fertile soil. And that's the one that in most cases, right, those that want to listen and adhere to that advice and implement it become significant, because there's no more longer about success. We've all at some point reached a level of success. It's about significance. What is your legacy? How can you become better and deliver your best version? So you have to let go of good, right? And you have to adopt better to become great. That's what it comes down to.
Okay. No, definitely. So, you know, you talked about change, and people can't make that change on their own because, you know, if you could, you wouldn't need help, but you can't do something that you don't understand what it is that you need to do. Um, you know, work with a lot of business owners, and you've got a lot of experience, but you know, I've been an employee, I've been a supervisor, I've been a manager, I've been executive, I've been a chief operating officer, you know, I've had my own businesses. So, you know, I understand the transition from each, but if someone's never been in those spots, in those seats, how can they tell you how to do it? So, you know, that's key. But, you know, I was spent some time as a naval officer, and of course, you know, the Marines are part of the Navy, and the way they look at it is you can't change anyone except for through significant emotional experience.
Mm,
So, you know, that's why they do what they do, because they need to change you into a Marine.
mm.
You need that significant experience to be able to do it. So, so definitely, we've covered a lot of great stuff. One thing I want to come back to as well is, and you alluded to it, but most of the time the problem is you. And as a coach, you have to be good at being able to tell people that without them being mad at you. uh,
Yeah, that takes a lot. That takes a lot, brother. You know what? But you do it. Listen, as long as you come from a position of love where
yeah.
they understand that you are developing their human potential to the extent that you're just having them own their alignment of that emotional, spiritual, physical self so that they can feel that they're developing their best self for others, whether it's their family, whether it's their employees, whether it's their strategic partners. You know, that's what I value the most. And I love when I see the transformation and the improvements happen because it's a gift, honestly. And I feel anointed and I feel blessed to be able to work with folks in that capacity. And that's why I love being a coach.
hmm And, you know, many times business owners don't have an appreciation for the fact that their employees are never going to tell them things that they need to know because they're their employees and they're afraid to.
Mhm.
And as the leader, um, your what you say and how you say it makes a big difference. So if you're frustrated and you're like, say something that you're like, we need to do this. That means everybody in the company drops everything they're doing and does that. But then what happens? Then you have problems over here. So you got to be able to communicate in a way that you're not causing more problems because people aren't clear on what they need to do. They obviously want you to be successful but sometimes you're confusing them because they're not getting the right signal, or they're not receiving the
Mm.
signal that you want them to receive. So it's real important. I'm sure you help a lot of people be able to communicate more effectively internally with their team. So what are some of the things or some of the challenges you see, and what type of approaches do you talk to people about, what they do as far as that?
That's a great question. I agree with you, right? Breakthrough requires us to build upon where the weaknesses lie, right? There was an old saying that, focus on your strengths and forget about your weaknesses. But if you break it down at 100%, your strengths are at about, I would say to you, 70%, right? And then you take your weaknesses of 30%. Pareto rule is always so phenomenal that I would share with folks, break down what is Pareto, what was the rule, why did it come out, what did it do, right? It said basically if you had 80% of your energy invested in just 20% of the core of what you got to get done, it is amazing in its reciprocity on the 80% that will come back to you with just that 20%. And the beauty when you're leading teams, right, you need to make sure that as that leader in whatever capacity you're in your role, that you're teaching them how to collectively, cohesively be able to move as a team, right? That's why championships are delivered by those champions who have a coach that says, hey, here's our playbook. And this is what I go through in what is the blueprint, right? And how do you basically implement this blueprint? So much of what we do, to your point earlier, Andrew, is make sure that we focus in on consistency, right? Once you have already the right methodology and you put it into practice, you need to be consistent, because what happens we may waver. It's like what's going to happen right now throughout the holidays. Everyone is going to have a resolution. And then you have all these resolutions, and 90 days after January 1st, what happens? We all go astray. We all fall off the track. And then what happens? We go back to what we are default. So we have to be able to hold them accountable, right? So number one is holding them accountable. Number two is the consistency of what it is that we have now adopted that we must put into practice. And then number three is trusting the process. So you have to, that's the acronym, ACT. You have to trust the process, right? Be consistent and be accountable. And so when you do that, it is amazing the results that come out of it. There are multiple acronyms that within my 16 sort of principles of leadership that I go through. Like, for instance, when we're talking about goals, right? Okay, we have just set a goal. Now, how are we going to achieve the goal? Many times what happens, it's almost like for ourselves, we know what we got to do, but we don't do it. That's the greatest gap that stifles us from being able to become more successful in being our best self, not just for, ourselves, but for those around us. And that's where we have a lacking. So we have to be accountable. We have to be held accountable by the coach. We have to be consistent with the coach requires. And then we have to trust the process that the results are going to come. It's almost like if I take you into the gym and I'm your trainer and I have you just constantly lifting 10 pounds, for 6 weeks. And then at the 7th week, I say, okay, Andrew, you got to lift 25. You're going to say, wait a minute. At what point did we improve? And at what point did we increase the weight? At what point did we see the progress? And I'm still the same. But if I now challenge you and I put you through that process and I give you these formulas and I say, trust the process in this blueprint. And if you do this day in and day out, you will have the discipline and the obedience to be able to deliver on those results. And it doesn't fail. It's like with anyone in their walk of grace. It's like with any of us that are out there pursuing some change for ourselves. What do we need? Progress. And the only way you're going to get that progress is by, again, being held accountable, being consistent, and trusting the process. That, my friend, is discipline. That is the gauge, right? Like, what is the difference between a home run and a foul ball, Andrew?
Really, it's like a half a second, probably, if that.
Timing, right? That's the difference. So just think about that. So if it is your time where you've now committed to doing what the plan of action calls for, and you're going to be consistent with it, and someone's going to hold you accountable, and if you trust the time, right, you're going to hit a home run. It's timing. So it's a lot of, listen, when I think about this subject, which I love the most because it's about the mindset, right? The battlefield is in the mind, right? We know that the heart can be, deceitful and wicked because we have our feelings and the emotions come from our heart. And what happens is, an employee does something where they didn't listen to you. They had an initiative or they suggested something and they do something that, pisses you off. And now all of a sudden you get all emotional and they know that you already talked to them about trusting the process. They know that you gave them a trainer, facilitated coach to deliver on what that methodology was, and they put it into action, but you still are not in the change management mindset. So what happened? You get all upset, you went off course, and then you see the result. You're like, oh, wow, okay, now I understand why that employee did that. So sometimes you have to trust your employee, you got to trust your process, and you got to know that you are building and cultivating a culture that is all about growth. And when you have that, as it is to a personal, to myself, to you, to everyone who's listening, that's what it boils down to, right? That growth and triumphant mindset. How do we build that? How do we develop it where we can give that gift to others and be inspirational and influential to others?
Okay. No, excellent. So once again, you've went faster than I could keep up. And but I'm going to take out a few things that you talked about that were key. And definitely you could have almost written my books for me, because actually one of the things was like chapter 2, 3, and 4 in my book, Running Your Small Business Like a Pro. The first chapter is about what's your greatest fear. So you talk about fear, and for most business owners, it's numbers and analysis. So most of them are afraid of that, so they don't look at that, or they don't want to know what they say. But then you're not doing your job as a business owner and leader. And how can you make good decisions if you don't do that? So that's one of the first things I talk about. But fear is important. The next chapter, and I think you're going to like this, because you're not the only one that can come up with anachronism. I think you'll like this one. So, the chapter is called How Am I Going to Get the Money? But my process is called Pray for Financing. So, not only, doesn't hurt to get on your knees, but also you got to prepare, you got to research, you got to assemble your documents, and then you got to yield and let the process happen the way it's supposed to happen. So,
I love that. I love that, Andrew. And I read your book, by the way, but I didn't take some of the content added to be put into this show. So don't worry about it. We're good.
Right.
No plagiarism here.
Right. And then the next one is next chapter is it me or are my employees crazy? Because sometimes you think it's them, but it's usually you. So definitely, the same themes. Sometimes I say nothing is new under the sun. Business is business. There's new things, there's new tools and techniques, but at the end of the day, it's about figuring out how to add more value to whoever you're working with. Then they pay you, and to make sure what they're paying you, you're making enough money from that to continue doing what you do. And beyond that, it's all just, that's the essence of what business is. So, so definitely key. So now, you talked about consistency and discipline, and that can be a hard thing to do. And when I was in the Navy, one of the things they said was, sort of discipline is being able to do the things that you don't want to do and not complaining about it. So, you probably have some sort of, definition like that. But, as a coach, you have to set an example for the people you're working with, just like they have to set an example for their people. So how do you discipline yourself, and what types of processes do you use to do that successfully?
I love that question. And Andrew, it's funny because as you were saying that, you as a naval officer, it hit me, right? Like the Marines say, everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. So the irony of it is the following. I find that focus is so instrumental in what we have to do. And as I said earlier, right, there's a big gap between knowing what we have to do and then doing it. So the discipline, because we listen, we have to be always vulnerable and being able to say, and Brené Brown, who I love as an author and speaker, always talks about this, right? That the vulnerability show the weaknesses that are the scars that we can talk about. Why? Because we've made mistakes. We have failed, right? And I look back at 3 major events in my life, right? Number one, when I was a director of health human services, right, for the city of Hoboken. And here I was in 2001, right, just 6 months in a job. And I'm facing now, and I have about 200 employees, and I'm facing this crisis where we got hit with 9/11, right? And what that was like was, just, a torment, and just, such a sense of, oh my God, what do we do? Because there was no playbook for this, right? There was no blueprint. There was no real OEM at the time that understood how to deal with such, horrific terroristic attacks. And here we are across the water, and public transportation had completely shut down, right? There was no communication. And we have hundreds to thousands of people jumping on ferries, the New York waterway ferries, to come across the river. And I was the director of Health and Human Services and Community Development. And what did I have to do? I had to figure out with my team and the leadership, how do we now help these folks that are going to be stranded on our side, but how do we compassionately also service them by virtue of the mental health aspect, given that none of us had experienced this, right? So this was such a, catastrophic and metamorphosis of an event that it was just, unbelievable. But yet through it all, and I thank God that we were able to have, a spirit of discernment, a spirit of wisdom, and a spirit of leadership that led them to have comfort, right? We had to provide these decontamination centers so that when they came off the boats, because they were filled with the debris, that they got washed out, then we had to take them into, these facilities that we had to provide them, mental health services and food, and everybody was walking around like zombies. And it was just, horrible. But yet the compassion and the collectiveness of love that existed for everyone involved was amazing. And it got us through, and we were able to provide shelter, and we were able to set everything up within literally 24 hours of experiencing this. And then fast forward, at 2012, I'm faced, again, as an executive director, leadership role, with Superstorm Sandy, where I had 51 out of 52 buildings, 10 feet underwater, right? No power. We had no electricity, no heat and hot water, for 21 days. And yet we, again, in a team effort, leading my people and having this culture that said, no matter what, we would put them first before us. And in that leadership of love and of just care and being able to purposefully serve them by making sure that everything in the playbook of the infrastructure, the mechanics, and everything was done, and you go above and beyond that. So that was a blessing. And then again, fast forward, then you have the pandemic. I'm executive director of another housing authority, and then we have, COVID-19. And again, senior citizens who were impacted heavily that you had to protect. And there was no real protocol for this, but you got to figure it out. So once you've gone through these major events and these milestones in your life, you get to realize that it was a blessing, and it was a preparedness and a training for what it is now that you can help others. And that's a great example of what I'm able to do in my giftedness and in being able to serve those that choose to retain a coach like myself.
Okay. No, I mean, definitely, excellent piece. One of the things, I went to MIT undergrad, and, it's a little bit hard there, but, like you said, it's a great place to be from, but not at. And that's just like all the situations you explained. It wasn't great when you were doing it, but you grow a lot and you learn a tremendous amount, and you understand things. So definitely going through that was key. We do have a little problem here because it's like 5 minutes to 9 and we're just getting started. So so this is I'm like, man. So we're gonna have to have you on the show again, because
It would be my honor and privilege. As I love the fact on how we're flowing, and I hope that everyone listening, for your viewers and followers, that they ascertain these valuable pieces of information, these golden nuggets, these bars that we drop here, just because we want to service them and love them more and give them added value and give them the gifts that we have. So I'm grateful, and truly, it's a joy to be with you, Andrew. And I love, what the future holds, and it's so bright. And so we, hope is hearing other people's experiences. And that's what we give the most, right? We want to be a beacon of hope to others. We want to ensure that, again, to your question earlier, that they understand through focus, right? And through the ability to have expectations set the right way, to have the consistency, have the effort, have the surroundings, right? Because you have to have the right people around you. You got to know when to, Tyler Perry says this best, right? Your rocket and those boosters that fall off, right, is because there are resources and people that come in your life that are for that purpose. And those events and the roles that you play are for that season and time, right? Ecclesiastes 3 talks about this, and it's about that purpose for that time. But as you realize after going through all that, that in the end, it is how you make a difference. And all along in growing up, the good Lord gave me this mantra: I can, I will watch me. I can, I will watch me. I can, I will watch me. And as I matured and transitioned to leading teams, it was like, we can, we will watch us. We can, we will watch us. And so today, that is a great, cornerstone to what it is that I'm able to do for others. And that's the key. And I've done a lot of business incubation. I've helped a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, because I love the fact that Black and brown business owners, entrepreneurs, we didn't have the full access to the cadre of resources. And when you're blessed with those resources, it's for you to be resourceful. So that's what I believe in. And that's what I'm trying to do with others, to, take them to the next level up, take them from successful to significant. So I'm just grateful. Thank you, Andrew.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining me, but I'm not going to let you go just yet, because at the end, one of the things, we take a short break, but I want you to come back and I want you to say, okay, we spent time talking about all this stuff. There's 3 things that I want you to do tomorrow. I want you to take away and get started doing tomorrow. So take a minute to think about it. I'm just going to share a little bit of, I do a Power Breakfast conference for entrepreneurs and business owners. It's been about 10 years. We've helped people get tens of millions of dollars in financing and opportunities. And, we're looking, our next one is actually January 27th. It's great, sweet. Our featured guest speaker is going to be the small biz lady, Melinda
Nice.
Emerson.
Yeah, I love her. She's amazing.
Nationally, internationally known as a small biz lady. So very excited that we're able to get her. We also have the infamous, famous Carmelo Coach G. He's going to run a panel, and we're going to talk a little bit more about really how you can break through and be successful. And then, we also have Judith, and she was at NGIT, and now she's at the EDA, and she's going to really share some tremendous knowledge and expertise. So it's going to be really powerful. January 27th, we're going to have a networking reception the night before. And if you don't know what it is, I'll show you a quick video, and then we'll come back with Coach G and we'll close things out.
Awesome.
If you are looking to increase revenues, improve profitability, and or obtain financing for your business, you need to check out the Power Breakfast and Small Business Pro conferences.
My name is Andrew Frazier. One of the things we're here to do is supercharge your day.
Today's Power Breakfast has really been a phenomenal experience. I think it's exactly what business owners need, some true guidance of people who are genuine and really are leading them in the true direction of business growth and expansion.
The Power Breakfast is so important for the entrepreneurial community because it gives the various business people who come together an opportunity to interact and also do some business.
These events, hosted by Andrew Frazier, President and COO of Small Business Like a Pro, will supercharge your day.
I love that.
Okay.
Supercharge your day, Andrew Frazier, because you are indeed, brother, the Small Business Pro University. So excited about what you're doing here.
Yeah. So no, this is tremendous. So tell us, what should we do tomorrow?
Last acronym, brother. Tomorrow, everyone, first of all, pray, right? And praise God that you are still here doing great works and you have a business that is either surviving, thriving, and will be striving. And so strategy, S.O.S, right? Help, Coach G. Number 1, strategy. Reevaluate your strategy. It's always best to assess your strategy and make the course correction, make the necessary adjustments, right? Be obsessed with the strategy that you have chosen in any aspect of your life and in every area of your business, right? Emotionally, spiritually, physically, to own your alignment. And lastly, I would say your story, right? Don't let anyone define your story. You write the ending of your story. And so go to my website, im4cg.com. And we also working on an app with my daughter, Leah Garcia. Shout out to her all the way in the West Coast called motivateyouapp.com. And we're looking forward to really helping more people achieve their goals and dreams and bringing them to a stronger faith, bringing them to a stronger purpose and finding a purpose and giving back to others, because it's not about, what we get, but it's about what we give. So I hope that everyone out there listening today, has taken in some valuable lessons, some valuable nuggets, and I'm just grateful, thanking God that we can be here together, Andrew, to share. Thank you so much.
Okay, excellent. Thank you as well. Hang in there. I'm going to close things out, but hang in there, and we'll catch you in a minute. So first, thank Carmelo. He's done great. Always love talking to him, and those are some of the key things that you need to do breakthrough results. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes a discipline to work on it. So definitely, if that's something you're looking for, you may want to reach out to him and sort of see if he might be able to help you. But as we close out, one of the key things is, every week we have tremendous people. So looking forward to the coming week as well. One of our regular guests is Gene Bohinski. And we're going to talk about how you can accelerate sales without a salesperson, especially for small businesses. Maybe you can't bring in a salesperson or a sales team, but you still need to get sales. So what are some things that you can do that? And actually, there's some strategies that you could do it even better than if you had a sales team. So Gene has a lot of expertise in that. He has a great model for how he helps business owners do that. So definitely tune in next week. Definitely worth checking out. And then, really, we focus on leadership because, leadership is key to your business. And we do this for you because at the end of the day, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.com.
Give me 10 minutes.